Hello students, this is Santosh Dhud from Parthanang Mathematics Institute Ahmedabad, and in this video I will take you through the solutions of NTA's test paper number 9. The first question, the length of the shadows of a vertical pole of height h thrown by sun's rays at three different moments are h, 2h and 3h. So there is initially a shadow of length h, and at a later moment in the day, let us say the shadow has become long 2h, and at a much later moment it has even become longer and 3h. So let us say this distance is h, from here to here is 2h, and from here to here is 3h. Let these angles be alpha, beta and gamma. Now the question asked is, what is the value of alpha plus beta plus gamma? Now tan alpha is going to be h by h or 1. So alpha is very simple. It's just pi by 4. What is the value of tan beta? Tan beta is nothing but h by 2h or 1 by 2. And tan gamma is going to be h by 3h or 1 by 3. Right? Very straightforward from all these right angle triangles. Let us find what will be tan beta plus gamma. Whether that gives us any interesting insights. Tan beta plus gamma is tan beta plus tan gamma by 1 minus tan beta tan gamma. So this is 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 by 1 minus 1 by 2 into 1 by 3. So this becomes 5 by 6 by 5 by 6. Right? This is 3 multiplied 2 and then 6 here, and then this 1 by 6 minus 1 is 1. So this becomes 1 also, which implies tan of beta plus gamma is 1, implies beta plus gamma should be pi by 4. So remember, very interesting, that is, if you have two angles whose tan values are 1 by 2 and 1 by 3, adding them gives pi by 4. Could be a useful piece of information in some other problems. So alpha plus beta plus gamma obviously is pi by 4 plus pi by 4, pi by 2. So pi by 2 is option A here. Question number 2. F of x is 3 raised to minus x. Is this function 1 to 1, onto or decreasing, or which of these combinations are true? First of all, this function is 1 to 1 because if x is not equal to y, let us say 3 power minus x is equal to 3 power y minus y. That is, for two different values of the argument, you get the same value of the function. Now what would this mean? 3 power minus x by 3 power minus y is 1, or 3 power minus x plus y is 1. 1 can be written as 3 raised to 0. Therefore minus x plus y is 0 and x will be equal to y, which contradicts here. Right? Therefore this cannot be true. Therefore 3 power minus x cannot be equal to 3 power minus y when x is not equal to y. This means it is 1 to 1. Now how about onto? Onto means that you have the inverse of this function also should extend over the whole domain. Now the inverse of this function, let us say you take log of f of x base 3. Okay? So that would give you minus x, or x is equal to, let us say g of x is equal to minus log x base 3 is the inverse function. Now logarithm, you always know, cannot take values from minus infinity to 0. Right? It can take only real values. Therefore this function is not onto. The graph also of this function, for example, if you see, from 1 at 0 it will be 1, and then it will start decreasing towards 0, and here it will go to infinity. So you see the domain, when the values of the domain stretch from minus infinity to infinity, only the positive values are taken. So the negative values the function does not take at all. So it is not onto, it does not cover the whole range possible. Okay, so it is not onto. What about decreasing function? Differentiate this and see what happens. If you differentiate this, also from the graph you see it is a decreasing function, but differentiate this just for the sake of completeness. Remember, d by dx of a raised to x is a raised to x log a. So this becomes 3 raised to minus x log 3 into minus 1 for the sake of this here. So it is minus 3 raised to minus x log 3. This whole thing is a positive number, so this becomes negative throughout. So if it is a negative value throughout, then we know that the function, this function particularly, is a decreasing function. Log is always a positive number, and this is also a positive number. So therefore this is a negative thing. So it is decreasing in all R. Therefore the third option is correct. So 1 and 3 are right, which is option C. Okay, very simple problem. Let us move on to question number 3. A little bit tricky, but not very difficult. F of x is given by x raised to p cos of 1 by x when x is not equal to 0, and 0 when x is equal to 0. So they have given that f of 0 is 0. And this should be equal to limit x tends to 0 of that x raised to p cos of 1 by x. Right? Now if this is supposed to be 0, remember cos of infinity, when you put x is 0 here, this is going to be cos of infinity. And cos is only going to be between 0 and 1. It is not going to become infinite at all. So this is a finite number between 0 and 1. So if this should become 0, then this p has to be a positive number. Because if it is a negative number, like what I mean is, if p is a negative number like minus 1, then it would mean 1 by x, and then limit x tends to 0 will become infinite, not defined. Or if p is 1 by x power minus 2, or any number, even x power minus 0.5 would mean 1 by root x. Therefore, for this to be equal to 0, x raised to p to be equal to 0, to tend to 0, we need p to be greater than 0. For continuity at least. Because they have said, see remember, they said it is differentiable. Differentiable means also continuous. Okay? Continuous does not mean differentiable, but differentiable means it is also continuous. So we say that p is greater than 0 for continuous. Now differentiable. Now if you are differentiating this function, it's going to be a bit involved to guess what will be the correct relationship, but we will try to find the derivative using this technique. You know this, no, that differentiation is defined as x plus h minus f of x by h as h tends to 0, right? Now take x is 0, what would you get? Limit f of h minus f of 0 by h. Now this in our particular case will be h power p cos of 1 by p minus 0 by h as h tends to 0. Or this becomes limit h tends to 0 h power p minus 1 cos of 1 by p basically. Now if this is to be 0, p minus 1, if this is to be equal to 0 at that point, because it can only have 0, this is a finite number. If this is going to be greater than 0, that is p is going to be greater than 1, then this will be equal to 0. If p is less than 1, this will be negative and it will go to plus or minus infinity, and all that complication ensures. Therefore, p is greater than 1 is the condition for its differentiability. Correct answer is p is greater than 1, option B. Let us move on to question number 4. If P is a man is happy, Q is a man is rich, are two statements. Then the statement, if a man is not happy, a man is happy is P, so man is not happy is Q, then he is not rich. Not rich is not Q. If is conditional, right? Conditional is this implication. If not P, not Q. Okay? If a man is not happy is not P, implies then he is not rich is not Q. So the answer is option A. Not P implies not Q. Let us move on to question number 5. The general solution of this system of equation is, and cos x they said is not equal to 0, is what? Okay. So this whole thing, first of all, we'll simplify that sine cube x using the expression for sine 3x. We know sine 3x is 3 sine x minus 4 sine cube x, or sine cube x is 3 sine x minus sine 3x by 4. This can be used to write sine cube of 2 pi by 3 plus x will be nothing but 3 sine of 2 pi by 3 plus x minus sine 3x is sine of 3 times this angle, so it becomes 2 pi plus 3x upon 4. Now what is 2 pi plus 3x? Now 3 sine 2 pi by 3 plus x, let me written as x plus 2 pi by 3. This is nothing but sine 3x because it's a multiple of 2 pi, brings the angle to the first quadrant, by 4. The same way I can write sine cube of 4 pi by 3 plus x as 3 sine 4 pi by 3 plus x minus sine into 3 times you multiply this angle, you get 4 pi plus 3x. Again 4 pi is a multiple of 2 pi, first quadrant angle. So this is nothing but 3 sine of x plus 4 pi by 3 minus sine 3x, the whole thing by 4. Okay, so we have sine x cube, sine 2 pi by x, the 2 pi by 3 plus x the whole cube, sine 4 pi by 3 plus x the whole cube. All these three things are here. Put them all here and notice that there is a 4 common denominator, right? So when I put them all together, I get 3 sine x. If I see here, I have 3 sine x here, I have 3 sine x plus 2 pi by 3, 3 sine x plus 4 pi by 3, minus sine 3x, minus sine 3x, minus sine 3x. So I can combine these terms separately and say this is sine x plus 2 pi by 3 plus sine x plus 4 pi by 3, right? These 3 terms, 1, 2 and 3, and then these 3 terms are minus sine 3x, minus sine 3x, minus sine 3x. So there will be total of minus 3 sine 3x. Okay, and then together you have plus 3 by 4 cos 2x. So it is plus 3 cos 2x. The whole thing divided by 4 is equal to 0. Those 4 can be taken there and made 0. Let us just simplify this bracketed term. Sin x, if you use the formula for sin c plus sin d, which is, you know, sin of c plus d by 2 times sin of c minus d cos of, excuse me. Remember all these trigonometric formulae precisely, don't make any careless mistakes here. So the sin x plus sin x plus 2 pi by 3 plus sin x plus 4 pi by 3 can be simplified as combining these two terms, sin x plus sin of 2 sin of this plus this by 2. So that would make 2x plus, adding these two I get 2 pi by 2, and this minus this, so cos of 2 pi by 3 subtraction by 2. So this becomes sin x plus 2 sin, this is x plus pi and this is cos of pi by 3. Sin x plus 2 sin pi plus x is minus sin x, and cos pi by 3 is 1 by 2. Third quadrant angle, right? So 2 and 2 are gone. I get sin x minus sin x, which is 0. Therefore, this first bracket is completely 0. So all that I have is minus 3 sin 3x plus 3 cos 2x is 0. Or if I can cancel divide by 3 and cancel everything, I can write 3 cos 2x is sin 3x. Correct? Now, how to simplify this? The easiest way is to take sin 3x is nothing but cos of 90 minus 3x. Right? When such a condition occurs, 2x can be equal to, you know very well that 2k pi, any angle, any multiple of 2 pi plus the angle is going to be the same. Or 5x can be written as 4k plus 1 pi by 2. X can be 4k plus 1 pi by 10. So for all these values of x, the equation is satisfied. So the answer is 4k plus 1 pi by 10. K belong to Z. Now remember, it's a very simple problem. The most important thing is to notice that these terms, combining these three terms using this identity, you get a 0 there basically. Okay. So once you identify that, then there is no issue. From there you can say that the other part, the solution is this much. Let us move on to question number 6. Now this is a tricky question. They said a plus b plus c is greater than 9c by 4, and the equation is a squared ax squared plus 2bx minus 5c is equal to 0 has non-real complex roots. Okay, if I write y is equal to ax squared plus 2bx minus 5c, I know this is a parabola, right? Now if this is a parabola and has non-real complex roots, that is, it has no real solution, then this parabola should never cross the x-axis or touch the x-axis, right? Because at the points where it touches the x-axis, those points are the roots. So this parabola has to be completely here or completely here. It has to be completely positive or completely negative. If it has to be completely positive, then a should be greater than 0, we can say. And then some other conditions from these things should come. So one of these two cases, which case is it? And based on that, what can we say about the coefficients? That is what we are going to look at. Now they have given us a condition a plus b plus c is greater than 9c by 4. Now this can be written as 4a plus 4b plus 4c is greater than 9c, or 4a plus 4b minus 5c is greater than 0. Now there is some link between this and this. Can you see that? That is, there is a minus 5c, and if I take x is equal to 2, y will also become 4a plus 2 into 2, 4b, right? If x is 2, x square is 2, x square is 4, 2x is also 4. Therefore y will become 4a plus 4b minus 5c. The link is to see this minus and minus, 5c minus 5c minus 5c. So y is also greater than 0. Okay? No problems at all. So if y is greater than y of 2, basically I mean, that is, at x is equal to 2, y is positive. So if 1 is positive, then everything should be positive. It should never cross the x-axis, we were saying. So not this, but only this. So if this parabola is supposed to be positive always, then definitely a should be greater than 0. So it has to be one of these two conditions. What can we say about c? Now we know that the parabola is always positive. Therefore, at x is equal to 0 also, we get y is minus 5c. This should also be greater than 0. This would give us that c should be less than 0, or c is negative. A should be positive and c should be negative for this condition to work. So a is positive, c is negative is b. So the answer is option B, a positive and c negative. A bit tricky. You use the idea that since there are no real roots, it doesn't touch the x-axis at all, and therefore it has to be completely in the positive side or negative side of the y-axis. And we show that it is completely the positive side by taking the f of 2 value. This is fy of 2 basically. This is the same as what they have given. Okay, question number 7. A1, B1, C1, A2, B2, C2, A3, B3, C3 is 5. Then the value of this. Now if you see close enough, B2, C3 minus C3 minus B3, C2 is the cofactor of this element. And then cofactor of this would be A2, C3 minus A3, C2, which comes here. with a minus, of course, so it's reversed. Then C1. So this is nothing but the matrix of cofactors. Okay. If you have the matrix of cofactors, you know the determinant of the matrix of cofactors of A is equal to determinant of A raised to the power n minus 1, where n is the order. Right? It's quite simple to derive from the definition of inverses. Okay. So if the determinant is 5 and the order of the matrix is 3, the matrix of the cofactors of A's determinant value will be 5 power 3 minus 1, or 5 square 125. Okay. Oh, sorry. 5 square is not 125. 5 square is 25. How come I? Sorry for the blunder. 5 square is 25. So the answer is question number 7, option B. Okay. Very simple. Remember that the matrix of cofactors of A, the determinant value of that matrix is determinant of A power n minus 1, where n is the order of the determinant. Question number 8. F of x is x by 1 plus mod x is strictly increasing, strictly decreasing, neither increasing nor decreasing, not differentiable, etc. Now it's a very simple question. Now increasing, decreasing, always investigate the derivatives. F of x is x by 1 minus x when x is less than 0, and x by 1 plus x when x is greater than 0, and has value 0, right? The left limit and the right limit are going to be both 0. So it is a continuous function. If I put x is 0 here or here, I will get 0 only. Now what about the derivative? How to differentiate this? So if I differentiate this, the usual rule is square the denominator, put the denominator, differentiate the numerator, subtract, put the numerator, and differentiate the denominator, right? And you get minus 1. So this would become 1 by 1 minus x squared, x the whole square, right? Minus x, plus x and minus x here. This is for x less than 0. Now for x greater than 0, it is 1 plus x squared, and the numerator I get 1 plus x into 1 minus x into 1. So it again becomes 1 by 1 plus x squared, x the whole square, for x greater than 0. Now you see, both these are positive numbers, right? 1 by, this is a square, this is also a square, here I have square. Both are positive means f dash is positive throughout, whether x is less than 0 or x is greater than 0, it is positive throughout. Okay? Therefore, it is strictly increasing. And if you see the value of the derivative at x is equal to 0 is 1 in both cases. We put x is 0 here or x is 0 here, they both tend to 1. So it's a strictly increasing function. So option A, strictly increasing. Question number 9. Let z is equal to I, z not equal to I be a complex number such that mod that z minus I by z plus I is a purely imaginary number. Then z plus 1 by z is how much? What they have given is, this is purely imaginary. So the real part of this number is 0. So how to find the real real part or imaginary part? Take z as x plus iy. So I get basically this real part of this is 0, and I get real part of x plus I into y minus 1 by x plus I into y plus 1. Now multiplying by the conjugate, this is equal to 0 basically. If I multiply by the conjugate, real part of x plus I into y minus 1 by x plus I into y plus 1 into the conjugate of this is x minus I into y plus 1. by x minus I into y plus 1. This is 0. Now to find the real part, you know, is just the product of real parts here and the real parts here with a minus, AC minus BD. I prefer using that rule. So if I need only the real part, not the whole multiplication, and I'm going to equate it to 0. So the real part will be x into x squared minus or minus is plus, y minus 1 into y plus 1 is y squared minus 1. Divided by the denominator says x square plus y plus 1 the whole square. This implies x square plus y square plus is equal to 1, let us say. Okay. Now x square plus y square is equal to 1 implies mod z square is equal to 1 or mod z is equal to 1. And remember, whenever you have mod z is 1, z bar is equal to 1, because mod z square is equal to z bar. Therefore z bar is 1 by z. See, in the question they have asked z plus 1 by z is how much? Now we have seen that 1 by z is z bar. So this is z plus z bar is how much? Correct? Now z plus z bar we know is always a real number. That much we can say. The imaginary part will always be 0. Z, a number and its conjugate, if you add, you get only the real part, 2 times the real part. Therefore it is a real number. So how do we know? It is any non-zero real number is the answer. Okay. Very simple question. Find explicitly what is z, what is the relation between the coefficients of z, and then z bar is equal to 1 gives z conjugate is 1 by z. Using that rule, I got that z plus 1 by z can be written as z plus z bar conjugate, and therefore if that is equal to if you add a number and its conjugate, you will only get 2 times the real number, the real part. Okay, so understood the answer, any non-zero real number. Okay, question number 10. The domain set of the function tan inverse of x minus cot inverse of x plus cos inverse of 2 minus x. Now this, here x can be from minus infinity to infinity, and this also can be from minus infinity to infinity, but this can be from minus 1 to 1 only. That is 2 minus x should be within this limit. Therefore the first one gives 2 minus x is greater than or equal to minus 1, or x should be less than or equal to 3. Okay, and here 2 minus x is less than or equal to 1 will give minus x is less than or equal to minus 1, or x should be greater than or equal to 1. Therefore combining this, I can say greater than or equal to 1 but less than or equal to 3, which is closed interval 1 and 3. Option C, very simple, based on cos inverse of x is from, cos inverse can take values only from minus 1 to 1. The distance of the point 1, 2, 3 from the plane, there is a plane x plus y minus z is equal to 5, measured along the straight line x is equal to y is equal to z is. So there is a straight line x is equal to y is equal to z. So in this direction, if you measure the distance of this point from this plane, what is it going to be? So the idea is simple. You find a line parallel to this passing through this point, okay, and then find the point of intersection here with this plane, and then find the distance. So see, the direction ratios are 1, 1 and 1. So line through 1, 2, 3 with direction ratios 1, 1, 1 is going to be x minus 1 by 1 is equal to y minus 2 by 1 is equal to z minus 3. If we want, I'll write explicitly. Now any point can be calculated by taking it to be equal to k. So x will be k plus 1, y will be k plus 2, z will be k plus 3. Any point on this line. To find which point lies on the plane, you put this in the equation of the plane. Okay. So equation of the plane is x plus y minus z is 5. Now x is k plus 1, y is k plus 2, minus z is minus k minus 3, right? And therefore I get k is equal to 5. 1k and 1k are gone, 3 minus 3 is 0. So if k is 5, x will be, remember, k plus 1, k plus 2, k plus 3. So I can say x, y, z, this point is going to be 5 plus 1, 6, 5 plus 2, 7, 5 plus 8. Now you have to find the distance of this point and the other point, 1, 2, 3. So the distance is going to be square root of 6 minus 1 the whole square plus 7 minus 2 the whole square plus 8 minus 3 the whole square. This is 25 plus 25 plus 25 under root, which is root 75, or 5 root 3 units. So the answer is 5 root 3 units, option A. Very simple problem. Find the line through this point and parallel to this, find the point of intersection, and you are done. Now this is another interesting question. The number of rational points, a point A comma B is rational if A and B both are rational numbers on the circumference of a circle having center pi comma E is. That is, there is a circle whose center is pi comma E. It can be of any radius, they have not mentioned the radius. Now on such a circle, what would be how many rational points you will be able to find? Now, I will tell you two ways of doing this. One is based on the parametric form. If you know the parametric form of a circle with center as h comma k and radius is a, okay, is h plus a cos theta and y is k plus a sin theta, correct? Usually it is a cos theta, a sin theta for a circle whose center is at origin. When the center is at h and k, it is h plus a cos theta, k plus a sin theta. Now in our particular case, this will be x is pi plus a cos theta and y will be e plus a sin theta. So you see that even if I have a radius which is rational, this is going to be an irrational number. Pi plus something is going to be irrational. E plus something is also irrational because both are highly irrational numbers. However, is it possible to have at least one point? Now I would say that question depends on whether I can make both of these 0. I mean x and y equal to 0. That is the solution, right? For example, if I take cos theta is equal to minus pi by a and sin theta is equal to minus e by a, which means that a should be equal to, if you make the sum of the squares, you get a cos theta is minus pi, a sin theta is minus e, so a should be pi square plus e square. Under such conditions, this combination exists. That is, cos theta is minus pi by square root of pi square plus e square and sin theta is minus e by a. In that case, a cos theta and a sin theta would make x is 0, y is 0. So you can have one point in one circle, that is a circle with center at pi comma e and radius root of pi squared plus e squared, and that point on the circle is the origin itself. So circle can pass through this one point. For any other value of the radius, you can never make both rational. Or for any other, so this is the only circle, a circle of radius pi square plus e square and center at pi comma e, which has at least one point, at most one point, only this point. There is no other way you can make a rational number out of this. No other way except 0, 0. Okay? So there is at most one way, only one point. Clear? I will give you another method also to come to the same conclusion. See, let us say that there are 2 points. there are at least 2 points. Okay, let this be x1 y1 and let this be x2 y2. Okay, origin is here pi comma e. Now you know that this chord is always bisected by the radius, right? Perpendicularly actually, right? So if I find the perpendicular bisector of this line, that should pass through pi comma e. Let us say both are rational points. This is also rational, this is also rational. Okay. Now what will be the line perpendicular to both and passing through the midpoint? Okay. So this midpoint is y1 x1 plus x2 by 2 and y1 plus y2 by 2. This line is passing through the midpoint and has slope minus 1 by this slope. So it will be x2 minus x1 by y2 minus y1 with a minus. So this line is going to be y minus y1 plus y2 upon 2 is equal to m is this minus x2 minus x1 by y2 minus y1 into x minus x1 plus x2 by 2. Now you see this equation, everything is a rational number. This is a rational number, rational number, rational number. So I can say this is going to give me one equation of the form, let us say ax plus by plus c is 0, no? Any line of this form, where a, b, c are all rational. Now as I told you, this is this line, this ax plus by plus c is this line, perpendicular bisector. It has to pass through pi comma e. Or if I substitute that here, now this shows it can be 0 only if all a, b and c are 0. No other case there is going to be 0, because this is all irrational number and all rational numbers. This can never be 0. Correct? Therefore, there cannot be 2 points. If there are 2 points, then there will be a line like this. So there cannot be 2 points. So even if there is any point, there can be only 1 point, at the most 1 point. And that 1 point is the origin. The origin is the only such point. For a particular circle, it has to have this center and this as the radius. I prefer this method because you also are able to find that 1 point. Okay. Moving on to question number 13. If the integral 5 tan x by tan x minus 2 dx is equal to x plus a log sin x minus 2 cos x plus k, then the value of a is what? Now again here there are 2 ways. The easier way is to differentiate this side, because you know always differentiation is easier than integration. So differentiate both sides. What do you get? On the left hand side I get 5. When you differentiate under the integration, you just get the integration. I mean this integrand alone will come out. Differentiate this, you get only this integrand. Right hand side becomes 1 plus a log, so it becomes sin x minus 2 cos x. And then in the numerator I get cos x because of differentiating this expression plus 2 sin x, and k vanishes. So let us simplify both the sides. What happens here is 5 sin x by cos x by sin x by cos x minus 2 is equal to 1, or let's take LCM here, sin x minus 2 cos x plus a cos x plus 2a sin x, the whole thing divided by sin x minus 2 cos x. Now the left hand side is also 5 sin x. If I take LCM, this becomes sin x minus 2 cos x. And here I have again the same sin x minus 2 cos x. And the sine terms, if I see, are these two. So 2a plus 1 sin x and a minus 2 cos x. So comparing both the sides, the coefficient of sin x in the numerator is 5 and this is 2a plus 1. Cos x doesn't exist here, so a should be, this term should be 0. So a should be 2. If I take a is 2, this term vanishes and this becomes 5. So it is satisfying this. So the answer to this is a is 2. Okay. Quite simple. If you differentiate this and then you put a minus 2 is 0. A minus 2 is 0. This implies a is 2. Or 2a plus 1 is 5 also implies a is 2. Any way you do, you get a is 2. Now you can also integrate the whole thing, the left hand side, and get to the right hand side and then show that the value of a is indeed 2. That would be a bit lengthy, and I suggest you do it this way. If you need to know how to integrate this for a general purpose, come to this form and let me show you quickly how to do that. That is this is just an extra, not part of the problem. The problem is over. So I have 5 sin x by sin x minus 2 cos x. So you take t as sin x minus 2 cos x, and you can write dt as cos x plus 2 sin x. Okay. Now you search whether you can write any of this as a combination of t and dt. Okay, of course there is a dx. Combination of t and dt. That is, if I take this one and multiply by dx, I can get t dx is equal to sin x minus 2 cos x dx, right? Now if I do a summation of this and this to get 5 sin x dx, that is, if I need 5 sin x dx and to eliminate, let us say, the cos x, all I have to do is multiply this term by 2 and add it to this. That is, to get this, t dx plus 2 times dt. Okay, because t dx is 5 sin x minus 2 cos x. 2 times dt is 2 cos x plus 4 sin x. 2 cos x and 2 cos x would vanish, and this would give 5. So it's actually t dx plus 2 dt upon t. So this becomes dx plus 2 dt by t, which is x plus 2 into log of t plus some constant k. And log of t is the sin x minus 2 cos x. So you see that in the place of a you have 2. Okay. Okay. Question number 14. If A, B, C are non-coplanar, non-zero vectors such that B cross C is A cross B is C, and C cross A is B, then which of the following is not true? Okay. Now let us see first of all, they have said A is B cross C. Okay. Now take a dot product on both sides. A dot A becomes A dot B cross C, and you know this is the box product, right? ABC. So ABC, box product ABC is equal to mod the magnitude square of A, correct? The same way, if you take the next one, that is, for example, A cross B is C, and take a dot product with C on both sides, this becomes a box ABC. And you can show the same for B also. So what we have achieved is mod of A is equal to square root of ABC. Mod of B also will be the same, and mod of C also will be the same. It will be square root of ABC, basically, the triple product. So we have established that all three have same magnitude. So this is not true. So the answer could be this. But let us just answer is this in fact. Let us just try to prove the other things also. Okay. How to show that each has mod 1. Now you see, A is B cross C, C is A cross B, C cross A is B. Now A is B cross C means A is perpendicular to both B and C. Here C is perpendicular to both A and B, B is perpendicular to both C and A, which means A, B, C are mutually perpendicular, right? They are all like the coordinate axis. the ijk vectors a, b, c are mutually perpendicular. Now they are mutually perpendicular, and take the first condition, that is a is given to be b cross c. Now if you take the magnitude on both sides, you know that b cross c is nothing but the magnitude of b, magnitude of c, magnitude of, and the sine of the angle between them. And sine of the angle between them is 90 degrees because they are all mutually perpendicular. So magnitude of a is magnitude of b into magnitude of c. But already we have shown that a, b, c have the same magnitude. So this can be written as magnitude of a squared. So magnitude of a is equal to magnitude of a squared. So magnitude of a into magnitude of a minus 1 should be 0, which means magnitude of a should be 0 or magnitude of a is 1. Now 0 is not allowed because then that would make every product 0. So a is equal to magnitude of a is 1 is correct. Therefore all a, b and c should be also of magnitude 1. And if all three are 1, the magnitude of this will be 1, 1, 1, which is 1. So magnitude of a is 1. Magnitude of the box of a, b, c is also 1. And mod a, mod b, mod c, if you add all three, it is also going to be 1. It's 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3. But this is false because we have shown that all three are equal. So the answer is option D, because the question is, please note, not true. Which is not true? Only this is not true. Moving on to question number 15. Limit x tends to 0, log of 1 plus x squared plus log of 1 minus x plus x squared by secant x minus cos x's. Now let us combine the log in the numerator. When you combine the two logs, it becomes log of 1 plus x squared into 1 minus x plus x squared. Right? So this is like a squared plus a plus b into a minus b. You take 1 plus x squared as a and this as b. The whole thing as a and only this as b. And the denominator, let us simplify it a little bit. 1 by cos x minus cos x. So the numerator again, coming back, it is log of 1 plus x squared the whole squared minus x squared by 1 minus cos squared x by cos x. So what happens to this? This is log of 1 plus x 2x squared plus x power 4 minus x squared divided by, or if I take the, can I say what happens here? This term is 1 minus sine cos squared x is sine squared x by cos x. Okay, so this becomes log of 1 plus x squared plus x power 4 by sine square x cos x. I am going to split it as sine x cos x into sine x. This is limit x tends to 0. Okay. Now what is all this leading us to? Basically, let me write one more step here. We are going to use all these standard integrals. What standard integrals? I mean standard limits. We are going to use sin x by x, tan x by x, all those limits. Limit x tends to 0. Now how to bring that? Bring in a by x and multiply by x squared. Okay, so these two limits are taken care of. And also if you remember, we are trying to use the standard limit. Sin x by x is 1, limit x tends to 0, remember. Tan x by x is 1, log of 1 plus x by x is also 1. All limits x tending to 0. Okay, we are going to use this. So to bring in something like this, I have to multiply this whole thing and divide the whole thing by this x square plus x power 4. And then here I have this other terms, sin x by x, tan x by x into x squared. Alright. So you see now what we have done. If I can apply the limit x tends to 0, this whole thing is going to be 1, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 1. And here how to simplify this? It is all nothing but x square into 1 plus x squared, right? I can cancel eventually this x squared and this x squared. Okay, so all I have is limit x tends to 0, 1 plus x squared, which is 1. Very intricate, appears very intricate, but then some small simplification, we get standard limits. So the answer is option B, 1. Very good. Let us move on to question number 16. Determinant a squared, b squared, c squared, a plus lambda squared, b plus lambda squared, c plus lambda squared, a minus lambda squared, a minus lambda squared, c minus lambda squared is equal to k lambda times the whole thing. K not lambda is not equal to 0, then k is equal to how much? Okay, quite simple. Let us try to simplify and bring it to the standard form. First of all, I am going to do a row 2 replaced by row 2 minus row 3. So what is the logic? See, if I do the first term alone separately here, I'll show you what happens. A plus lambda the whole square minus a minus lambda the whole square is 4a lambda, because here I have a squared plus lambda squared plus 2a lambda. Here I will have a squared plus lambda squared minus 2a lambda, but the minus would cancel a squared and lambda squared, and I have only 4a lambda. So this becomes 4a lambda. The same way b square, and this becomes 4b lambda, c square, and this becomes 4c lambda. And let me just expand this and write a squared minus 2a lambda plus lambda squared, b squared minus 2a lambda plus lambda squared, 2b lambda, excuse me, c squared minus 2c lambda plus lambda squared. Okay, so from here, using this one thing, I have simplified this. Take out 4 lambda, so I get a squared, b squared, c squared, a, b, c, and the final line is a squared minus 2a lambda plus lambda square, and so on. Okay. Now you know that this determinant can be split into 3 determinants because the first 2 rows are the same, and this row is the summation of 3 different terms. The first determinant can be like this, a, b, c, and I can keep only a square, b square, c square, plus second determinant would be a square, b square, c square, a, b, c, and this minus 2a lambda, minus 2b lambda, minus 2c lambda. And the third can be a square, b square, c square, a, b, c, and lambda square, lambda square, lambda square. Correct? These three terms, so 3 determinants, and the whole thing multiplied by 4 lambda. Now this determinant is 0 because it has first and third rows are identical. This determinant is also 0 because these 2 rows are proportional, product of 2 lambda. So only this would remain. So I get 4 lambda determinant, excuse me, a squared, b squared, c squared, a, b, c, lambda squared, lambda squared, lambda squared. And if I am to take lambda squared out, I get lambda cube, a squared, b squared, c squared, a, b, c, 1, 1, 1, which is of the form here. So k lambda should be equal to 4 lambda cube. And if lambda is not equal to 0, I cancel both lambdas, 4 lambda squared. So k should be 4 lambda squared. Option C, 4 lambda squared. Moving on to question number 17. The line 3x minus 4y plus 7 is 0 is rotated through an angle pi by 4 in the clockwise direction about the point minus 1 comma 1. So there is a line, point is minus 1 comma 1. So this line is passing through this 3 minus 4. So let us say something like this. And this point is minus 1 comma 1. Now it is, how to know whether this point lies on this line? Substitute and check. 3x minus 4y plus 7. If you put minus 1 here, is equal to 0. Minus 3 minus 4 plus 7, which becomes 0. So 0, 0. So it lies on the point lies on the line. So they are rotating this line about this point, clockwise by 45 degrees, pi by 4. So they are rotated clockwise by pi by 4. Okay? So imagine if the angle of this line is alpha, the angle of this line is going to be beta, then beta is nothing but alpha minus pi by 4, right? So the slope, it is very simple now. Find the slope of the second line. It also passes through this minus 1 comma 1 and everything is solved. So slope of the second line is tan beta. This, if this line's slope is m2 and this is m1, this is m2 is tan beta is tan alpha minus pi by 4. This is tan alpha minus 1 by 1 plus tan alpha, right? And tan alpha is nothing but m1, and m1 is nothing but 3 by 4. So the slope m2 is 3 by 4 minus 1 by 1 plus 3 by 4, or 3 minus 4 by 4 by 7 by 4 becomes minus 1 by 7. So I have to find a line whose slope is minus 1 by 7 and passes through the point minus 1 comma 1. So y minus 1 is minus 1 by 7, x plus 1. Or this becomes 7y minus 7 is minus x minus 1, or 7y x plus 7y minus 6 is 0. X plus 7y minus 6 is 0. So x plus 7y minus 6 is 0. Is only this option, option A. Question number 17, option A. Very simple. You show that the point lies on this line, and then since you know that the angle is going to be reduced by pi by 4, it is rotated clockwise, and you write tan beta is tan of alpha minus pi by 4 and use trigonometric identities. Now question number 18. If 2y is equal to cot inverse of a very complicated expression, the whole squared, then dy by dx is equal to. Now of course you know that here you shouldn't rush into trying to differentiate this, you will literally die. So therefore, let us simplify the whole thing. Let us start with the brackets inside. Root 3 cos x plus sin x by cos x minus root 3 sin x. Now if you see, if you get some cot of something, then that has an advantage here, right? Cot of something. Otherwise you get anything, it wouldn't matter. You have to get cot of something. So make the numerator cos and denominator sin. That would bring in cos by sin cot. How to do that? Divide both the numerator and denominator by 2. So write like this: cos x plus 1 by 2 sin x by 1 by 2 cos x minus root 3 by 2 sin x. Now if you know cos pi by 6 is root 3 by 2 and sin pi by 6 is 1 by 2, the denominator is sin pi by 6 cos x minus cos pi by 6 sin x. This is simple to say. The numerator is nothing but cos of pi by 6 minus x, and the denominator is sin of pi by 6 minus x. If you are able to see this, you know this is cot of pi by 6 minus x. Therefore 2y becomes cot inverse of cot of pi by 6 minus x, the whole square, or this is nothing but 2y is cot inverse of cot. We're just going to drop it, pi by 6 minus x, the whole square. Of course you have to know that if this is a negative angle, then you would have to go for, that is, if x is greater than pi by 6, you have to go for 180 minus this, right? If x is less than pi by 6, it is okay. If x is greater than pi by 6, then it is 180 minus this. For now, let me just consider that it falls within x is less than pi by 6. They have not given us any Pakka criteria. But let us say, so this has the condition x is less than pi by 6. I'll show you what happens in the other case also. Now differentiate this. 2 dy by dx is going to be 2 times pi by 6 minus x into minus 1. So 2 can be cancelled, and dy by dx is therefore, the minus 1 comes from differentiating this, right? So, yeah, the answer is x minus pi by 6, or minus of pi by 6 minus x, which is option C. Alright, so what if x was greater than pi by 6 here? If x was greater than pi by 6, cot inverse of pi by 6 minus x, if this x was going to be greater than pi by 6, then the answer would have been pi minus that x minus pi by 6, right? So that is, it would have been 7 pi by 6 minus x. This cot of, cot inverse of cot this would have been 7 pi minus pi by 6. So in that case, it would have been 7 pi by 6 minus x the whole square would be 2y, and dy by dx would be x minus 7 pi by 6. So this is for the region pi by 6 to pi by 2. For the region 0 to pi by 6, it would be this answer. So among these two, we have only this option. So therefore the answer is C. No problems here. 19. Experiment yields 3 mutually exclusive and exhaustive events. Mutually exclusive, so there are no intersections. Exhaustive, all 3 added will give 1. If P of A is 2 times P of B is equal to 3 times P of C, then P of A is equal to, let us say P of A is K, then P of 2 times P of B also is K, therefore P of B should be K by 2, and 3 times P of C should be K, P of C should be K by 3. Since they are mutually exclusive, no intersections, and exhaustive, adding all 3 should be equal to 1. So this would be 6k plus 3k plus 2k is 1, or 11k by 6 is 1, k is equal to 6 by 11. So option D, k is 6 by 11 is the correct answer. Let us go to question number 20. The number of 4-digit numbers formed by using the digits 0, 2, 4, 5, which are not divisible by 5, is how much? Of course, there is something missing here, whether you can repeat the digits or you can't repeat the digits. But see that the number of the answers are all very small, that is very few numbers, which means in this case it should be not repeated. Okay. Now let us see how many numbers can be formed. They are saying not divisible by 5. So if there is a 4-digit number, we are doing without replacement, and there is 0, 2, 4, 5. In the last place, you can have 2 or 4, 2 possibilities, either 2 or 4. Okay. Now let us see the other places. First we will focus the first place, because if 5 or 0 is here, then it will be divisible by 5. In the first place, if you put 2 or 4, imagine you put 2, then you have 0, 4 and 5. But from this 0, 4 and 5, you can have only 4 or 5. Only 2 possibilities can be here. So imagine you have put 4 in that. In the next place, we will have 2 ways, and this place will have the last 1 way. So the total is 2 into 2 into 2, which is 8 ways. So there are 8 numbers that can be formed. Option B, 8. Very simple. Question number 21. If the variance of the following data is k, then the value of k is how much? Okay. Now it's an ungrouped data and we can't do anything. Find the mean. We know the variance, the expression for variance is x squared, sigma of x squared by n minus sigma x by n, that is the mean, the whole squared. But the sigma x squared by n, squaring them, then adding them, dividing by n is going to be messy. So we will use the other equivalent expression, xi minus x bar, the whole square by n. This is the proper definition of variance also. So what is x bar? Add it quickly. You see it is an AP, right? So 6 plus 24 is 30, 8 plus 22 is 30, 10 plus 20 is 30, 30, 30. So 5 30s, 150 by 10. 15 is the x bar. Now what will be the xi minus x bar the whole square? Okay, so variance is therefore summation of, or let me remove the summation. First, the 6 minus 15 square is 9 square. 8 minus 15 square is 7 square. 10 minus 15 square is 5 square. 12 minus 15 square is 3 square. 14 minus 15 square is 1 square. And then again 16 is 1 square. The same things, right? So there will be twice this by n is 10, of course. So this is going to become, let us add them quickly, 89, 81, 49, 25, 9 and 1. So this is 130, 140, 165. So variance is 165. This is into 2. It's not squared, it is into 2. Into 2 upon 10, which is 33. They have said that the variance is k. Then they have asked k by 11 is 33 by 11, which is 3. So the answer is 3. Question number 22. If the middle term in the binomial expansion of this is 63 by 8, then the value of power 10 means there are 11 terms. Therefore, sixth term is the middle term. And we know TR plus 1 is NCR. The first term a to the power x minus r, and the second term power r. So T6 is going to be NC5, 10C5, a, that is 1 by x raised to 5, and x sin x raised to 5. Now this is given to be 63 by 8. How much is 10C5? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 6 and 6 can cancel 2 and 2, 4. So this into 1 by x power 5 into x power 5 sine power 5x is 63 by 8. Now of course, if you see that x power 5 and x power 5 are gone, and I have 9 times 4 times 7 is into sine power 5x is 63 by 8. Now 9 and 7 and 63 are gone, or sine power 5x is 1 by 32, sine x is 1 by 2. You found this, they was the value of 6 sine squared x plus sine x minus 2. So substitute it there, 6 into 1 by 2 the whole square plus 1 by 2 minus 2, which is 6 by 4, 3 by 2 plus 1 by 2 minus 2 is 0. So the answer is a nice round 0. Okay, very simple. Middle term, standard binomial thing, simplify and get the answer. Moving on to question number 23. The area enclosed between the curves y is ax squared and x is ay squared, both are a is positive, is 1 square unit. Y is ax square is going to be like this, right? And y square is ax, or x is ay square is going to be like this. This area is given to be 1. So we have to find the value of a. What will be the points of intersection? You take y from here and substitute here. So x, if you put that here, x becomes a into ax square the whole square, or x is a cube x power 4. This means a cube x cube minus 1 times x is 0, which is x is 0, therefore y is 0, that is this point itself, or a cube x cube is 1 and x is 1 by a, and the corresponding value of y, if I substitute anywhere here, for example, is 1 by a. So this point is 1 by a comma 1 by a, and this point is 0 comma 0. So the integration is straightforward. You have to integrate this curve minus this curve, okay, between limits 0 to 1 by a. So the area is given by y1, let us call this 1 and this 2, y of 1 minus y of 2 dx. So that would become, this curve's y is root x by root a. and this curve's y is ax squared. Now what does this become? This becomes x to the power 3 by 2 by root a 3 by 2 goes up minus ax cubed by 3 0 to 1 by a. Now therefore area is going to become, if I substitute 1 by a here, 2 times this 1 by a root a, right, into root a minus a into 1 by 3 a cube, or this is 2 by 3 a square minus a and a cube is cancelled to give 1 by 3 a squared, or the answer is 1 by 3 a squared, and this area is given to be 1. Therefore 1 by 3 a squared is 1, or a 1 by 3 is a squared. Therefore a is plus or minus 1 by 3. You choose to take 1 by 3. Okay. Now they have said a is equal to 3 root 3 by lambda. Sorry, a is 1 by root 3, excuse me, or minus 1 by root 3. We take the positive value. So therefore 1 by root 3 is equal to 3 root 3 by lambda, or lambda is 3 root 3 times root 3, which is 9. So the answer to this problem is lambda is 9. Very simple area, finding area using definite integral. Question number 24. The value of integral minus pi to pi sine of y mod sine y by 1 plus tan squared by dy, the whole within a box. Interesting. Where x is the greatest integer function. That is, we find the integral value and then find the greatest integer function. So let us see how to evaluate this integral. Minus pi to pi square root of mod sine y by 1 plus tan squared y. Now this mod sine y is going to make it positive even when y is negative. So the whole thing is an even function, right? So I can write this as 0 to pi, 2 times of course, sine y by 1 plus tan squared y. Of course 1 plus tan squared y we already know is secant squared y. Let me write that straight away here. Now you see this becomes 0 to pi. This is nothing but square root of sine y, because y is always positive here and therefore sine y is positive in 0 to pi. And then root of secant square y becomes just secant y, and take it to the numerator as cos y dy. Now this integration is very simple. You take sine y as u and this becomes du, but then see that would give you the limits as 0 to 0, right? Hence we split this, because you see sin x is always a symmetric function. From 0 to pi it is symmetric about pi by 2. Or you can say, you know this rule, no? If f of pi minus y is equal to f of y in this case, then this integral can become the integral f of y 0 to pi can become 0 to pi by 2 twice f of y dy. And since that condition holds for sine, in the second quadrant sine is the same. Therefore this can become 4 times integral 0 to pi by 2 square root of sine y cos y dy. Now you take sine y as u. So cos y dy is du, and the limits are when y is 0, u is 0, when y is pi by 2, u is 1. So this becomes 4 times integral 0 to 1 root u du. This is 4 into u to the power 3 by 2 by 3 by 2, or 8 by 3 times between 0 and 1 into 1. So 8 by 3 is about 2.67. Now you remember that the question is the box of this. So the final answer is box of 2.67, which is 2. So it's a quite simple answer, 2. Let us move on to the final problem. The only thing I want to highlight here is to change this to this, because otherwise you will get the integral is 0, whereas it is actually not 0. Okay, the last problem. Let's see here, very interesting. They've given a1 is 15 and a2, 2a2 is less than 27. Now I have to do, we have to do that. Given this condition to be true, what is this? So first of all, what does this thing mean? That is 2 times ak minus 1 is ak plus ak minus 2, right? It is like if ak minus 2 and ak minus 1 are 3 numbers, twice this is the summation of these two. That is, this is these two divided by 2. Otherwise, ak minus 1 is ak plus ak minus 2 by 2. No, this is an AP. So the whole thing is an AP. First term is 15, common difference we don't know, and the nth term is just going to be 15 plus n minus 1d. N can be from 1 to 11, right? So the summation that they have given here can be written as summation of 15 plus n minus 1d the whole square. Now it is the squares of the individual terms upon 11, which is 90, right? So how can this be simplified? Of course, n goes from 1 to 11. See, this is 225 plus n minus 1 squared d squared plus 30 n minus 1 d. A square plus b square plus 2ab, summation from 1 to 11 again. Now if you see this n squared, n minus 1 the whole squared is 0 squared plus 1 squared, because n goes from 1 to 11 up to 11 squared, and this is going to be 0 plus 1 plus 2 up to 10, right? So this 225, 11 times when you add it becomes 225 into 11, and this is the summation of 1 square, 2 square up to 10 square. So that is n into n plus 1 into 2n plus 1 by 6 d square, and then here I have 10 into 10 plus 1 by 6. It is just summation of first 10 numbers by 2 is 90. Now this 11 has a nice role, it can cancel all the 11s involved. So I get 225 plus this is 35, 210 by 6 is 35 d square, and here I have 300 by 2, which is 150 d is 90. Therefore, this on rearrangement gives me 35 d square plus 150d plus 145 is 0. Or if I divide by 5, I get 7d squared, and then I have plus 1, so plus 30d, and then this divided by 5 is 20, 225, sorry, this is 135, and therefore it is 27. Now this can be factorized easily because it is 7 and d. 7 27s are 189. Anyways, you can simplify this here. To get 30, the only combination that would work is 9 and 3. So this implies d is minus 9 by 7 and d is minus 3. Which one to choose? They have given 2a2 should be less than 27. Now a2, if d is minus 9 by 7, a2 is 15 minus 9 by 7, which is, this implies a2 should be less than 13.5 basically. This becomes 105 minus 9 by 7, which is 96 upon 7. Now what is 96 upon 7? 97.7 is, if you take this is 13 times is 91, remainder 5.7142, etc., etc. So this is greater than 13.5. Therefore, it can't be 9 by 7. Take D is equal to minus 3. So A2 would become 15 minus 3, which is 12, less than 13.5. So D is minus 3 is correct. So now what have they asked us? They have asked us A1 plus A2 plus and so on up to A11. That is sum of n terms, n is 1 to 11 upon 11. So sum of the first 11 terms of this AP, since we know A is 15, D is minus 3, n is 11. Sum of n terms formula gives us 11 by 2 into 15 into 2, so 30 plus n minus 1, so 10 into D is minus 3, which becomes 0. Therefore, the answer is 0 by 11, which is 0. Remember, Sn, the formula that we have used is n by 2, 2a plus n minus 1d. So it's a bit tricky problem. First thing, guess it is an AP, and then do the summation of squares of the AP terms, get the quadratic, solve for D, and using the D, compute the summation. With this, we come to the conclusion of NTA test paper number 9. See you again with NTA test paper number 10. Signing off, this is Santosh Jut from Partang Mathematics Institute.